Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Payne and welcome to another anime review video. I have a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm just going to go right with this. This is the one of the hardest shows I've ever reviewed, Pop Team Epic. Pop Team Epic is wait, what is it? Hold on. Bit me there. What is this? A surreal comedy. No. There's got to be more than that. Come on. Damn it! Don't load on me. I want to see it. Wow, dementia. That's very settling. Okay, I'm just gonna go with surreal comedy. That's enough, right? I mean, the director had no idea what the hell he was getting himself into when he first got into it. Why should I? So yeah, speaking of the director, it was directed by Aoki in his directorial debut after working on various program openings, commercials, and shorts in Japan. It was written by Kotaro Sudo, who is also known for his work in, of all things, Shimoneta.
What?
It was also produced by Aoki and was made by the studio Kamikaze Douga in their animation production debut of a TV series after working on a couple movies, and are known for making the opening sequences of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. It aired in the winter of 2018 and consisted of 12 episodes. It started out as a 4-panel manga that was made by a guy named Kamikaze that has produced only 2 volumes since 2014, and ever since then it's been noted for its frequent parodies of pop culture and its combination of surrealism, absurdity, and non-sequitur comedy, all of which have contributed to its developing a cult following from both Japanese and Western audiences, in addition to the bizarre and exaggerated adventures of our 2 main characters. 2 14-year-old girls, the short-tempered and actually short Popuko, and the tall, calm, and collective Pipami. As for the anime, it takes the form of an animated skit show featuring numerous, typically disjointed shorts of varying lengths. There could be one skit that's 30 seconds, or it could be one that could be 5. It's very similar to other comedy anime, such as the last show that I reviewed, Sabakebu Survival Game Club, where they would cut their episodes into little skits and would take the shotgun approach to a comedy. But instead of aiming for laughs, they are aiming for shock value, and in this case, they hit their mark perfectly. And while some of these shorts are adapted from the manga, the majority of them are original creations, which means at some point there was a guy who actually created this stuff, who actually showed this to the guy in charge, probably Aoki. I heard Kamikaze was also a part of it as well, and actually greenlit this. But regardless of what's going on, you really gotta think for a second, not if, but when were drugs used, because there's no way a sane person would make some of the shit that's on here. Alright, time to get back on track. The various shorts, they collectively showcase a variety of animation styles, most often CGI, professional-looking 2D animation, and what is known as idiosyncratic animation from a company known as AC Boo, who before this mainly did music videos and commercials for various companies in Japan. Each 30-minute episode features 2 near-identical 15-minute segments, each containing different voice actors, mainly 2 male and 2 female voice actors, that have either worked together on another production and or are really good friends in real life, and as well as other subtle differences in both the sub and the dub, which Funimation got the rights for, which meant that by the time the series ended in late March of 2018, after 12 episodes, Popuko and Pipami have been voiced by 24 different people each. 48 people, 48 different voice actors, not counting a couple of segments in which they were returning voice actors. I'm going to be talking about those later. And in addition to AC Boo's unique take on 2D animation known as Pop Team Epic, the show also has a number of segments as well, such as Pop Team Cooking, which is their take on cooking shows, Pop Team Story, the longest segment talking about original stories and gags from the original manga. There was also a few segments where, after some research, had some very interesting stories. The first one is known as Pop Team Dance, which are music videos that feature stop-motion puppets of Popuko and Pipami of mostly original songs, with one exception. They did a parody of the 1981 hit Let's Groove by Earth, Wind & Fire, easily one of the most fire songs of 2018 that came from the 1980s.
We are Pop Team Dance, dance, go, go. Dance, 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 we first dance it out. Dance, dance, go, dance, 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 go, go.
And it was made by a group known as Uchu People, or group, I meant just a married couple. And there was an article that Anime News Network wrote about the two that I think is very fascinating in terms of how they got discovered to make stuff for the show in the first place, and how they do the choreography for certain clips. So I just think it's fascinating because I'm always into behind the scenes stuff. The next segment is Pop Team 8-Bit, which is a series of video game parody segments made with original pixel art animation. It was made by a guy named Makoto Yamashita, who at the time was a university student that was recruited by Jun Aoki after he produced a short film called Dot Bit Beat a couple of years ago, where he won multiple awards. Link is in the description for that. That's actually pretty cool. And the best part about all this is that he used the Pop Team Epic 8-Bit as his final term project at his art school. There's no word on whether he actually passed, but I'm saying this for everyone who has seen Pop Team 8-Bit and Pop Team Epic. I seriously hope he passed. That was really good. The next one is called Japon Millon, or I think that's how you say it. It's a gratuitous French segment, which was an original project made by... Hold on, I'm actually gonna look this up. Hold on. I'm gonna take the phone out again. Okay, I'm gonna take the phone out again. Jesus. I told myself before I started this video that I was going to be looking this up, but I just... Why is it taking so long? Okay, so I'm not going to be saying that. I'm just going to say Treska, because I am not here for a fucking French lesson. Anyway, back to the skit. It starts off with a live-action interview of Treska, the guy, in French, followed by a skit that features Popico and Pipami going around France with recurring French voice actors. But the story around the skit was that in an interview after the show came out, that Treska had, linked in the description, I'm going to say a part of it because it's part of the thing, he said that he thought that the video was for the Pop Team Epic website to promote the show, more of like a meet the creators type thing, and never expected the video to be on TV. And it wasn't until after the first episode came out that he knew what the show was all about, as he was also told not to really look at what anyone else is doing in regards to the show and not think about it that much. So for anyone who wants to see more behind the scenes stuff and to see a pretty interesting story, links in the description for that interview down below. But not only is the show known for its weird segments, it's also known for their references towards many forms of Japanese and Western culture. But not only do they have just references in their show, which is what most comedy and parody anime have, they have it in bulk in every episode. Hell, the references in the first episode alone are just Your Name, Chrono Trigger, Kimono Friends, My Neighbor Totoro, Pokemon, Berserk, Skyrim, Super Mario Bros., and Neon Genesis getting the goddamn robot Evangelion. They also went so far to the point where they had their first 3 DVD and Blu-ray sets. The artwork is a parody of the first 3 Die Hard movies. Die Hard, Die Hard 2, Die Harder, and Die Hard with a Vengeance. And with that, it moves me to my take on its choice of comedy to start the review portion of it. My theory is that this is a type of comedy that suggests that something will be funny if it simultaneously A, acts as a violation of what a person believes an aspect of the world ought to be, and B, is presented in a safe or non-threatening manner. That's rather abstract, so to make a somewhat more concrete extension of this in the context of anime, one would theoretically achieve this by, in some way, surprising a viewer, such as by setting up expectation for the show or its universe, and then defy them with some kind of punchline, joke, or whatever is needed at that time, but in a way such that the result is something the viewer won't find offensive, annoying, upsetting, or etc., really anything else. Keep in mind, this is only one of the many approaches to it, and not a perfect explanation by any stretch, nor are these anything close to the only variables which may be involved, but it's a helpful springboard to help me dive more into the show's content. Starting with the basics, Pop Team Epic makes use of many commonly cited forms of humor in amongst all of its glory and madness. These include, among many others, comedic shifts in tone, ironic character actions, situations being taken 4 steps further than expected to the point of absurdity, escalatory repetition, some puns and wordplay that I'm not even qualified to evaluate, and a few instances of seemingly bare-bones references that don't seem to have any strings attached. However, those latter types are thankfully a much smaller minority than one might expect. In most cases, there's a conceited effort to at least add something of substance to the reference in question, even if it's not always immediately apparent. But of course, simply having punchlines there isn't enough on its own. The fact that most of these traditional styles of jokes are condensed into extremely short skits does pose a challenge for the show in terms of having the time to instill expectations or ideas in a viewer, and then deliver a joke that isn't completely obvious from the brief setup that it was given. However, I personally found Pop Team Epic's success rate in this case to be higher than I thought. Perhaps because its variety of material and approaches gave it plenty of options for what direction to take any given skit in, while still maintaining that critical sense of flow to avoid a nosedive into true randomness, which it barely even touches in the first place. It's a precarious approach, a constant balancing act which didn't hold every single time, but as far as I'm concerned, it works well enough. So yes, this show does make use of some tried and true approaches to telling jokes, and frequently succeeds at maintaining the element of surprise, build-up, and payoff. However, Pop Team Epic is no ordinary comedy, and in addition to these more conventional approaches, it also carries a number of less common tricks in its grab bag. For instance, Pop Team Epic will often subvert the standard 4-panel format where they came from in order to further enhance the element of surprise, or add even more variety to how its jokes are delivered. For people who don't know, the 4-panel comedy strips will often spend 3 panels setting the stage, and then deliver their punchline on the 4th panel. This, of course, also applies to their adapters, whether or not the boundaries between skits, sections, or scenarios remain clear after the transition. In the case of Pop Team Epic here, the transition is marked clear as polished glass by voiced over title cards. In addition to the clear transitions, the show, however, often defies the conventional setup that it's given by placing an unexpected punchline near the beginning of the skit. What would be an equivalent to the first or second panel in its original form, with the remaining panels adding onto it in some way, such as by taking the joke to further extremes or making humorous comments. This further adds the element of surprise by varying the timing at which a punchline can hit. As a brief aside, this displays what I look for in referential humor. There should be some kind of punchline to go with the reference, and if the reference is necessary to understand the joke, its source should be something fairly recognizable to whatever audience is reviewing it. In this instance, these conditions were met, showing that at least some of the time, Kamikaze Douga, Aoki, or Pop Team Epic in general, they seem to understand that its frequent references can't carry the comedy on its own. To be honest, I'm not usually the biggest fan of meta humor, but this has less to do with the concept than it does with the execution. My problem with this type of humor are similar to those of the non-sequitur and referential varieties, such as in isolation as a one-off joke or small aside it can work. However, doing it repeatedly ceases to surprise, and it becomes increasingly annoying when overused. Furthermore, it simply lacks creativity. It takes next to no effort to do it, and is far too common an approach. In short, it's a lazy gimmick that has been done way too many times. But once again, Pop Team Epic steps beyond all that. It doesn't stop at trivial self-awareness or fourth wall breaks. Instead, the fourth wall ceases to exist here, and the show makes use of the viewer's acceptance of its self-aware nature to tell jokes that simply wouldn't have been the same otherwise. And on that note, here's where I must address my main problem with Pop Team Epic, and that is its inconsistency. While I found many of Pop Team Epic's skits to be a hit, and for others could at the very least see what the joke was, there was also quite a few segments where I just simply didn't understand at the time. Whether it was because I didn't know a reference, the joke was poorly presented, or because there simply wasn't a joke at all, I couldn't really say for sure. Regardless, many of them just seem to truly be random, have no point, or in rarer cases, simply exist as a reference with no apparent joke attached. Of course, some of the segments turned out simply to be setting up for punchlines in later skits and later episodes, while others could be seen as planting expectations for a later variation with something in common, continuing the trend of playing with the 4-panel format. While for others, however, they seemed to lack even this purpose. They were just there. They didn't really have anything. For some of these other segments, one could make a case for anti-humor, intentionally skipping the expectation of a punchline as a punchline in and of itself, or perhaps having the punchline be that what's happening should in fact be taken at face value. However, I found that these segments seemingly devoid of a punchline a bit too frequently for this to work. As such, they had little impact and forced me to simply give up on trying to figure them out. But I'll say this though, I'd rather make a joke fly over my head completely than to have it bash into my head and get brain damage. In all other cases, Pop Team Epic, leveraging its 4-panel format, moves at a quick pace, with quick setup, quick delivery of its jokes, and quick moving on from it, whether you got it or not. This sense of pacing also makes that even though many jokes or skits may fail to hit their target, their rate of fire is high enough to minimize long stretches of barren content. And with that, I've just about covered my reasons for enjoying this show for what it is. And as for my opinion, I enjoyed it, both as a novelty act and its own standalone product. Despite being more than a bit inconsistent, it still has its share of funny and memorable moments thanks to its straight-to-the-point attitude, its creative use of meta-humor and blunt delivery of surreal gags while mostly avoiding potential pitfalls and abusing non-sequitur and referential humor. While it certainly won't be everyone's cup of tea, the show is also wholly committed to its unusual vision and shows a degree of skill in using its varied material, structuring, and formatting to sell its unique brand of absurdity, and I respect the show for doing that. But not enough to give it a 10. Instead, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching my Pop Team Epic review. If you like this video, hit the like button down below, and if you want to see an anime review of Pop Team Epic Season 2, which is coming out next year, you can also hit the like button down below. If you want to see more anime review videos, you can hit the subscribe button. And if you want to see some more anime review videos that I've made in the past, there's going to be some on the screen, as well as more videos on my channel. And if there are any shows you would like to suggest, you can leave them down in the comments below. And with that, once again, my name is Payne, and I'll see you in the next video.